Hello and welcome to the Australian CFO Summit, Protecting the Profit in 2023. We're thrilled, looks like we're getting a slide up there. We're thrilled that you're joining us for this morning's session of AI in Finance Operations, Myth or Reality. So as you're joining the session, can I suggest you drop into the chat area where you're joining us from? My name is Heather Smith. I'm a chartered accountant. I've run a digital management accounting practice since the early 2000s. I specialise in navigating the business apps ecosystem. Before I begin, I'd like to thank our event sponsors. Oh, that's a picture of our wonderful panelists who'll be joining us today. And if I could move to the slide for many thanks to our event sponsors, Wheel, Fathom, Huddled, CFO Magazine, Alana Bennett, amongst many others. So many thanks to them. So we want this session to be as interactive as possible. Feel free to ask questions. And I can see that many people are responding in the chat area. We've got people coming in from everywhere, which is wonderful. Use the chat area to ask us questions, use the Q&A function to ask us questions, and I'll monitor it during the session. And I will ask the speakers, I'll bring those questions in for the speakers as we go along. So without further ado, let's get into today's session. Let's get ready to explore the truth about using AI in finance operations. Is it just a myth or a reality? Our dynamic panelists will delve into the impact on teams and businesses, the reshaping of finance operations, and the opportunities and challenges that come with using AI to scale your finance operations. Plus, we'll tackle the crucial topic of checks and balances to ensure success. So my first question to all of my panelists here today, thank you very much for joining us. Can I ask you to share who you are, where you're from, what brings you to this discussion today? Can I start with you, Asa?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Really excited about the discussion and the great panelists. For me, we've been working hard to get AI into all sorts of back office functions, and everyone has a finance department. So we're really keen to support the adoption of AI in finance. We're based out of Wellington, New Zealand. So we kind of have a slightly different perspective, although we do have clients globally. So really keen to be part of the discussion to help people see that, in my opinion, AI is a reality in finance and is here to stay. But really looking forward to the discussion. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Asa. Jump in. Next person who wants to jump in. Is that you, James?
Well, Damon just unmuted, but that's all right. I'll do it. So I'm James Carey. I'm a chartered accountant. I run an accounting firm called Prime Partners. We're based in North Sydney. I live in regional New South Wales, and which is why I'm old and wearing a helmet today. But yeah, I think I'm here just because I post a lot of rubbish on LinkedIn about all the stuff that just playing around with ChatGPT and again, we're not a finance department, but we help small businesses and we have our own internal finance. So I've been using it in our business, and yeah, it's been fascinating.
Great. Why don't I go next then? So Damon Hornstein, I'm the CFO at Wheel. We're a spend management platform, as you saw in the introductory video just ahead of this. So look, from my perspective, very excited to be here today. I think when we talk to other finance leaders, we talk to our customer base. I think generative AI in all its different forms is going to have big changes for the global economy, and I think for the finance function specifically, which is really exciting. And I think, today we're very much at the kind of experimental and early adopter stage, I would say, of this journey. And I think even in the last, few months, we've seen like step changes in like what's available and what's possible. And I think that's just going to pick up and accelerate over the coming weeks, months, and years, and ultimately expand into mass market consumer products that everyone's using day to day. So I think, very topical discussion to be having today in, what are we, May 2023.
And I will go last, I guess. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben, and I'm from Toka.ai. My expertise is I'm a data scientist by training, and I was the data scientist at Bright, which is a fintech, and we won the best use of AI in finance award in 2018. It's a while ago. I was also a CFO at a startup in Sydney called Upflowy prior to my current role. So I have worn many, many hats around this journey, whether it's the finance hat or the data science AI hat, and looking forward to having a lively discussion today. And in my opinion, well, many of us already actually have used AI in our finance department, so you might not be aware of it. AI really is just an extension of automation of the things we already do. So for example, if you ever snap a photo of your receipts and submit it to your expense report, that is already AI at work. So it's just going to get a lot more. Back to you, Heather.
Thank you, Ben. And I think that leads on to our very first question. But I will start by saying to the questions, yes, this session is recorded and I believe available afterwards. But stay with us and ask questions as we go along. So the question that we're here today to discuss is AI in finance operations. Is it a myth or is it a reality? So what are your thoughts on what's happening in the Australian and New Zealand finance departments today? Are they embracing AI? So happy for anyone to jump in on that and give their thoughts.
I'll happily kick us off again. I mean, I think to Ben's point, AI has been used in back office kind of functions in some ways, but maybe hidden away from the finance users, the operators, other members of the team. But I think now with the explosion, thanks to ChatGPT and large language models, I think now there's an understanding of what else is possible. And I guess to Damon's point, it feels like everyone's an early adopter, although AI has been around for a long time. Really, it's only crossed that chasm, in my opinion, from the early adopters into the early majority. So whilst many people may think they're early adopters, it's actually a lot more mature than it was a few years ago. And so in finance now, I think it's kind of moving from that big data use cases for AI that was involved in enterprises and big banks to coming down to, a single user can get value from AI, connected to an accounting system, connected to an invoice or to a purchase order, and now you can get incredible productivity value. Previously, I say it used to be more insights and analytics, a little bit of OCR to Ben's point, but now you can really get productivity gains at your fingertips, which that's the game changer, I think, is now it's accessible to everybody if you know how to integrate it, how to use it, and so on within the guardrails that I'm sure we'll talk about. But now it's really accessible to all, which is super exciting.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have anything to add to that? I think Asa summed it up well, but yes, that James.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, again, I'm probably coming from a slightly different perspective. Most of my clients are SMEs. The finance department might just be one person, and a lot of them are aware of it, and they probably have tools that have AI in it that they don't even know it's in there. But a lot of them are just still in the day-to-day doing what they're doing and don't have the headspace to think about it. And within our business, I'm the only one who's really doing it because I'm interested and like to sort of play with things. So I think this it's definitely out there, but a lot of people are. I don't know. There is that group of people who will always get in and have a play, and there's other people who will just wait for it to be handed to them. So small business is still, I think, at least regular mum and dad businesses are, it's nowhere near their radar.
I think just on that point, James, I think the ChatGPT kind of experience where you need to be a bit more technical and needs to be on your radar, I totally agree. That's still being played with by more technology-focused people. But I think what's going to be a big difference this time is people like Microsoft are going to bring it into products that very small single person companies are going to be using. So it's going to turn up in PowerPoint and Excel, and the same with Google Sheets and Google. It's going to be very much in the face and ready for that non-technical user. I think for the more sophisticated use cases, it's down to the technology industry, companies like ours, to try and make it as easy as possible for the non-developer, non-data scientist, non-geek, nerd, whatever we want to call ourselves, to be able to use it. And that I think will involve integrations and automations in a way which just feels like it is enhancing what you already do rather than having to learn something new. And I think that's where AI has got to at this point, which is really exciting.
Yeah, in very, very soon, everybody will be customers of GPT, but you might not be aware of it. You might be indirectly using it because it's going to be embedded in the product that you use already. I'm happy to bet $1,000 that zeros of the world are busy figuring out how they can integrate it into their product and how they cannot become obsolete in 6 months' time if a competitor is doing that and they are not.
Absolutely. So I'm here that people are going to be using it, even if they don't realize they're using it. And hopefully in this session, we can leave people with some practical activities that can move them further along on this journey. So why should businesses be open to implementing AI, and how is AI shaping financial operations in businesses who are embracing it? I wonder, Damon, is that a question you'd be interested in jumping in on?
Yeah, look, let me pick up on that. So I think, why would you embrace it today as a business? I think you need to look at what happens if you don't embrace it today to answer that question. So I think it will become a normal part of the business and finance landscape over the coming years. So I think if you're a business today, you've got a choice of embracing that or not embracing that. And I think, all sort of industries are competitive. If you're not embracing it, there's a good chance your competitors will be. And I think, we'll talk through this session about some of the, areas where these technologies are well suited and some areas where it's not well suited. I think it's, really important for businesses and professionals to start to familiarize themselves with where it can add value and where it can't add value, where it, does feel like a silver bullet and where you're always going to be chasing this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and it's never actually going to live up to its hype in some areas. So I think businesses that get their head around that early and are comfortable and confident around the right use cases, I think will be at an advantage relative to those that don't do it. And that should mean those businesses have, productivity, efficiency gains that those that fail to embrace it just don't have.
Yeah, I think following on from that, Damon, that some of the research that we've done into mid-sized and smaller organizations and their finance teams, there's still huge opportunities for that productivity gain. And whether it's manual data entry, whether it's manual reconciliation, whether it's sending emails backwards and forwards to vendors or customers, whether it's the kind of month-end analysis, kind of data gathering, there's real step changes. This is not, I don't think, save a few minutes, every week. This is save hours, potentially, days, in a month, kind of real 10x kind of productivity gains. And if we look at the broader context of where we're at economically, both there is a little bit of pressure economically, but there's also still labor shortages in various parts of the country or world as well. So kind of leaning into that, how do you grow in those conditions? How do you grow profitably? Thinking about cost to serve and those kind of bigger picture elements goes, this is a perfect time for this technology to be usable and accessible because the market conditions are all very favorable. And it's down to the technology adoption, to your point, Damon, about who can take advantage of it, either to become more competitive or to thrive in the economic environment that we've got.
And to that point, we've had someone jump in on the chat and say that given post-COVID, the employment shortage, it's been great to use systems rather than people to reshape the finance departments. However, that hasn't come without issues, and the programs do require a little finessing. So to continue the conversation, we've actually had someone jump in and almost ask the exact same question I was about to ask you. What are the opportunities and the challenges that come with using AI in finance operations? And how can the finance function derive more meaningful value from AI? Who'd like to jump in on that one? So what are some of the opportunities that come with using it?
I can ramble for a little bit. AI, at least, in the ChatGPT stuff, and we're not talking about, I'm not talking about, programs that you'll just start using where it's built in and it's embedded, but, AI as it is now for somebody to go and play with, to me, it's a tool that extends us. I don't think that in the short term, I'm going to be replaced by an AI, but I think an AI can make me much better and much more productive. And a lot of the stuff that I've been sharing on LinkedIn has been, things that I've not been able to do before because, I'm busy and I can't learn to code. I don't have time to learn to code. I can use Excel, but, I've never really mastered writing macros. So what I've been doing with, ChatGPT and similar sort of tools is I know there's an outcome that I want to achieve. I've got some data that I've pulled out of a legacy system where, it's not in a great format. I can't use it. For me to clean up that data requires, manual work. Now, if I was an Excel modeler, and I was sort of laughed at by Excel people on some of my posts for what it was, what the solution I was implementing. But I'm not an Excel modeler. I'm somebody without that level of skills, able to do things I wasn't able to do before. So write a macro to clean this up, present this data in a meaningful way. So that to me is the remarkable power of it. I've developed Microsoft Power Automation integration with Xero. So every day at 8 a.m., one of my channels in Teams gets a message saying, yesterday you sent out 6 invoices and the total, worth $10,000. So, it's a small thing, and I could always go and manually check how many invoices I sent yesterday or have, a finance person send that summary. But to be able to automate that with step-by-step instructions and back and forth from this machine, like, to me is remarkable. So that's it. The other thing, speaking to a lot of people, is there's almost this, I don't know, anxiety about how do I best use this? And, everybody's doing stuff with it. And it's, imagination is really kind of like the limiting factor of what you're able to produce with it. So there is a lot of angst around not taking advantage of it at the moment, but you kind of just got to get in and play and build.
Yeah. Absolutely. Such a great and transparent answer there, James. And I hope someone else will jump in as well. But I will pop in that in the chat area, I've put in James's LinkedIn details. He is posting almost every other day about his experiments, and people have said, like, what are people doing? Go and follow or connect with James and follow what he's doing. But would anyone else like to talk about that?
Yeah, why not? Look, I'll just jump in with a few practical things that we use it for today. And as I say, these are probably very nascent use cases. So look, things that it can be good at, checking like spelling, grammar, prose for like important, presentations, communications, like a board report or something. Obviously, some of those tools are built into, PowerPoint and Word today, but I think everyone would acknowledge there's limitations with those tools. So I found it quite useful for that. Providing a starting point for like important documents. So like one example is like a risk register for a company. You can get surprisingly good foundational risk registers out of ChatGPT or similar tools. It's not going to be perfect product by any means, but it'll give you like a baseline set of topics or concepts to consider that you can then build on on yourself. For very like, for want of a better word, sort of programming queries, be it like tools like Python or JavaScript or even SQL queries for like data analysis. It can help formulate those. I think you need a bit of background or familiarity with them to know whether the output it's giving you is useful or not, because often there'll be error. It can have a first pass at a lot of things and probably steer you in the right direction. So I think that's really helpful. Writing emails or to customers. So I don't think that's like chasing debts, like, communication that is, friendly, but, drives a particular outcome, could be quite good at writing those sort of emails. Again, in a general sense, still requires like proofreading and refining. And then just looking at numbers and probably commenting on them, and about just talking about how perhaps 1 month's results compares to the results a business has observed over the last 6 or 12 months. And, obviously ChatGPT and its ilk are not going to have the understanding of what's driven that from a business performance perspective, but it can write the prose around how, month that's been observed over the last 12 months, or it's an X% increase on the prior month, or, the profitability increase is driven by the, revenue or revenue uplift, or by steps like that. So there are probably a few practical areas where at least we've found that it's useful even in its current state.
Yeah, absolutely. So many of those people can actually take and just run with. And I do know that I actually read 400 accounting technology blog posts every single week. And the rise in American spelling that has come through on them has been really interesting, because ChatGPT defaults to American spelling. Even if you tell it, use Australian spelling, it starts by saying g'day, and then uses American spelling. So there's a tiny little issue there with the spelling that I have. So I'd like to come to you, Ben, with the next question, because I know you have a quite strong opinion on this. The ChatGPT seems to be leading the trend of 2023. Can you explain what it is, what generative AI is, and how it is different from AI?
Thank you for raising that, because I did want to say that AI is not, generative AI is only one part of AI. And AI, if you look at quite a broad definition, like I said, is essentially an extension of automation. And traditionally, we use AI for more like recognizing things. For example, if you ever taken Google camera to take a picture of a plant and say, tell me what this plant is, that is AI, but that tells you that is in recognizing an object, which traditionally rely on the human expertise to do. Generative AI just flips on its head. Like, I'm telling the computer or the AI, can you please draw me a picture of something? And it can be something very imaginative, or can you write me something that's very imaginative? And it will generate that text or that image for me. So for example, if you haven't done this before, go to ChatGPT. I dare you do this. Copy and paste your resume, your CV into GPT and say, please write my profile in the style of Kanye West. And just look at the stuff that it comes out. It is quite fun. So that gives you a sense of what ChatGPT is. It is a text generating tool. And I have to stress this very importantly, it is not a search engine. It is not a search engine. And it's so important, I'm going to say this for a third time, it is not a search engine. It can connect to one, but it's not one by itself. So it does not give you truth. It generates, the keyword here is it generates text based on what it thinks is most likely to make grammatical sense or make sense, but it is not a truth generation. It does not find truth for you. So you can do things like, hey, please help me write an email in my style, or can you write an email in the style of Kanye West or whoever your favorite writer is. You can even say, give me the outline of my board paper that I need to submit next week. And these are the 5 bullet points I want to talk about. Write the draft for me. And, I like this point, but didn't like that point. I need to expand it on our financial results for our sales from Northern Territory a little bit more. And then it would generate that skeleton and even some of the starting point for you. So that's how I use ChatGPT.
That's great. Thank you so much for that, Ben. I'll tell you something funny. If you don't want to use the Kanye West example, you can see just behind me, I'm the author of 8 Zero for Dummy books. So if you actually go explain how to do this in Zero in the style of Heather Smith, author of Zero for Dummies, it comes out exactly the way I would write. So I've got so much publication out there. So it's a bit freaky. I kind of like, do I need to do anything anymore now? But yeah, so Kanye West or that style. But Arthur, I'm going to come to you with the next question. We've already seen that tech moved from ChatGPT as a standalone product to plugins, to all the other big tech launching generative AI, to even better open source generative AI. There are big updates literally every week, if not every day. Tech has never moved so fast at this scale. So Arthur, can I start with you? What are the challenges and the opportunities that this brings?
No, it's good. It's a good question, and I think one of the things we are finding in this topic is ChatGPT is the only thing that gets referenced. I did a blog post today on LinkedIn. There's already dozens of different what are called large language models, which is the kind of AI that generally describes what ChatGPT is. And I would, give a word of warning, which I think most people do know, is do not post confidential information into ChatGPT. It is a public AI; it's not private. So there are concerns that people should have. You can see what happened at Samsung and other places where confidential information gets into the AI, which is not what you want. So there are a number of other options that are both open source and private. Some of them are being trained on very specific knowledge bases. So I think one of the big banks, always Bank of America or somebody is, Bloomberg, that's right. They've trained an AI on all of their data. So it can be an expert financial analyst AI. And there's one that came out recently specifically for healthcare. So I think what we are seeing already is the move to more domain specific AIs, so more domain specific ChatGPTs, if you like. But I think what we're also seeing is the technology that then goes underneath it to integrate it and make it more specific. So some of the challenges that James and Damon and Ben have all highlighted is that it makes stuff up. It's called a hallucination problem, because it is predicting, because it's been trained, ChatGPT has been trained on all of human knowledge pretty much. And so it is encapsulating all of that knowledge, and therefore it knows what a good bit of text looks like because it's read Heather's books, and so can kind of write it in that style. But also it will make stuff up if it doesn't actually have the facts. So kind of Ben's point, it's not a search engine. So you've got to really think about what is the technology underneath that will mean it will not lie or will not make stuff up. So already you can connect these large language models into your knowledge base privately within a secure environment and connect it to your support docs or to your employee policies or to your whatever, and actually begin to have it answer questions and not lie, right? So, but this is not something you can just copy and paste into ChatGPT and it will work. The plugins that have come out are really to help bridge the gap between the time box ChatGPT, which only has knowledge up until the end of 2021. Now you can plug into real-time sources like the weather or sports or tickets or travel or whatever it is to bring in the most recent information into the AI. And that's been called the App Store moment for AI, because now suddenly you can connect all these things together, which makes ChatGPT more useful, but also these other open source private versions, that you can have running in your company's IT or in your cloud environment. And that means suddenly you can make it more personalized, more secure, and you don't have to worry about all these hallucination problems. But it's a more technical implementation than just going to chatgpt.com, which is where everyone's copying and pasting, their information, which is not advisable if it's confidential.
Thank you so much for bringing the privacy and confidentiality to the forefront, and we are getting a lot of people in the chat asking about that. What are your opinions on me putting comparative data of a, say, a small Brisbane manufacturing plant, but not giving their name and putting that information in ChatGPT? Is that a problem? So anonymizing it, but giving it some context.
Yeah, I think it would depend on whether, if you were to present that same information to each other, to the competitors, as it were, would they be happy with it or not? I mean, that's my basic kind of view of would they be happy if it was anonymized and published on your website? Like, if you kind of think about it in those kinds of ways, then maybe not. I think to be able to do completely anonymized analysis, you've got to have a different kind of tooling to allow that to happen, in my opinion. But again, the challenge is the temptation is so high because the benefit of using the tool is so great. So you've got to balance off that risk and reward.
Yeah, great. That's a great thought process to take people along. So James, I'm going to come to you. You've commented publicly and online that you're being underwhelmed by ChatGPT's very, very poor understanding of the Australian tax system. So I'm keen to hear people's thoughts on this. Do you agree with James? Can its understanding of the Australian tax system be improved? Do you still have those same feelings, James?
And I guess to clarify as well, I think there was a comment before that said it's sort of like, it gives the impression of sounding authoritative because, statistically, it's choosing all the words that sort of make the most sense. I've asked it a number of questions, and it kind of gives the right vibe. Like the vibe is right, but there are. And I posted a thing on LinkedIn, which I subsequently deleted because I said, oh, wow, I was looking for an answer and it gave me the answer. How cool is that? And a tax lawyer basically said, come on, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong in the things that it said. And the context for what I was trying to do was I'd spent about 15 minutes looking on Google and the ATO's website to find a specific legislative reference for something, which, I'm sort of like, I know this is the rule, but I have to find it in the legislation. And I could find no reference for it. And I asked the question to ChatGPT, and it did give me the legislative reference, which is what I wanted. But around that, it gave a bunch of sort of, not really correct information. So
hallucinogenic information.
Yeah. So, I think that it can be useful, like anything that you ask it. I think it's useful as almost like a guide or a basis, but you shouldn't rely completely on it. Like I've tried to get it to, error check, spell, rewrite some of my emails, and I just don't like the style. And so I change it back to my style. So I think it's a useful tool, but I wouldn't take tax advice from it yet. But I'm sure that somebody will train, or somebody is training, getting all of the Thomson Reuters tax handbooks and feeding that in, and it will be able to give you a bit more concise information.
You can take this with a pinch of salt or some hype, but if you look at the GPT-4 launch video, if anybody hasn't seen that by OpenAI, it shows it processing a US tax return. So not in just paste it into ChatGPT, because that can't be done, but from a developer console, from somebody who understands how to use the APIs behind the scenes. There is a pretty impressive demo, but again, it is a marketing demo, so take it with a pinch of salt. But it kind of shows in GPT-4, which isn't widely available yet, the calculation engine that it's got built into it for the next generation is going to be a step change in some of that mathematical calculation and understanding of pretty complex formulas.
that takes a bit of a prompt engineering to get right. So what ChatGPT gives developers is the ability to use everyday language as an interface rather than a very boring and static looking form, or or a submission button as an interface. Because imagine the way you're in Xero, that you are, let's say, creating a new payment in your accounts payable processes. So the way you have to do is you have to find the relevant screen, you have to then find the right buttons to click, and then enter the numbers and exactly the right field as you would. But what ChatGPT allows developers and users to do is there is a text style, and you can just write in plain English to say, please send $100 to Ben Yi at Talker.ai using the information that's already saved. And please find the relevant invoice to match against it. And the prompt engineering in the back will extract the relevant information from that and then feed into the structured way that in a normal programming developer would do. So that's what it does. It translates to something that machines can understand, and then from that, machines operate the way they always have. So it might seem like magic. You write one sentence, something happens magically in the back end from those videos. There are actually several steps in the middle to enable that to happen.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Ben. So I'd like to move on and ask, what are some key considerations for selecting your AI tools, and how can businesses measure the success of using AI in finance operations? Damon, would you feel comfortable? Can I come to you with that question?
Yeah, sure. Look, I don't think the selection of the tool is like a big deal, personally.
As long as they're selecting wheel.
Look, I think, as I said, I think this technology is in a very nascent stage, and I think a lot of the offerings today that are in market are some form of like beta, or they're like some sort of early access program, or I'm talking specifically about sort of generative AI and sort of chat-based interfaces. Like, I think a lot of these are very early in their stages. So I don't think as a business you need to be too stressed about like picking the right tool, because it's all going to evolve so quickly and it's very easy to like change. And so, you know, you pick a tool today and then pick another one in 3, 6, 12 months time. So I don't think that's the big thing. To me, I kind of go back to my earlier remarks, which is, I think the more important thing is just for businesses and professionals to be experimenting and learning and just staying abreast of what's happening across the space. And I think that'll make you well placed to, you know, follow the growth and the advancements that follow, and quickly sort of jump on the winners as the winners really emerge. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents on that question.
Does anyone else want to jump in on that?
I think for me, part of the tooling discussion needs to be how easy is it to integrate with what you're already doing. So, you know, a lot of the stuff that comes out of Silicon Valley, for better or for worse, is typically a new kind of SaaS product where you got to learn how to use it, and then, you know, you may have some clunky integrations that kind of move data around, but kind of seeing where are you going to have the ability to Damon's point, to kind of play with something but not get over committed, but also that does cover the bases in terms of privacy and security and integration. I think from a measurement perspective, our view is looking at, you know, FTE, you know, time saved, right? So as a finance operations department or person, you know, how much time are you able to save doing those repetitive recurring tasks? Because that's where, you know, there is a decent amount of maturity, is to kind of move it from simple automation and the button clicking, as Ben was talking about, into kind of AI powered automation, which means you can 10x, you know, the times that you're saving. So from a business case, from a measurement, you know, it should be looking at that productivity. And so does that productivity translate to supporting growth or saving money, or What we find is people in the finance teams want to spend more time being more strategic. They don't want to spend as much time doing repetitive, recurring tasks. Even if those tasks are sent in emails, they end up being very repetitive and kind of semi-templated, which again could be automated. So I think it's sort of how much time do you want to save, and can AI help you reach that to get to having a more strategic impact in your business, which is clearly what everyone should be doing.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Asa. So as we're moving towards the end of the session today, I'd like to ask each of our panelists, what is one thing you would like the audience to take away from today's session, and how can people get in contact with you? You each have about 45 seconds to have a go at that one. What's one thing you'd like them to take away with them? Should we start with you, Ben?
Yes, I want to say AI is great. AI is going to be everywhere. You don't need to worry about whether it's going to, picking the right tool, because every tool will have it. But the important thing is fraud is also going to rise, because it's going to be so easy to generate very convincing looking documents and emails. So please keep your guards up, especially if you're in the finance profession. How to get in touch with me, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, Ben Yi at Talk.ai. Yeah, that is one thing I wanted everybody to take away. Keep your guards up.
Do we even know if we're real, or are we avatars, AI avatars, Ben?
I know I'm real.
That's what an AI person would say, isn't it? Who'd next like to jump in? Asa, maybe?
Sure. Yeah, happy to jump in. So for me, I think it's start using it. Start using it with the right kind of guardrails in place when it comes to purity, privacy and security. Think about the processes that you currently have that you would love not to spend so much time doing, and think about what the productivity gains could be for that. For those who want to get in contact, you can visit arcanum.ai, where we've got our finance assistant powered by AI. And then anybody wants to reach out either on LinkedIn or ASA at arcanum.ai.
Awesome. Next, James, can I go to you next?
I would mirror that comment. The best thing is to actually get in and just play and build things. And if you've got a problem that you don't know how to solve, be it how do I, what formula do I use in Excel? Like, this is the kind of thing that I use a lot for it, just day to day. How do I convert this date to this date? And I used to go and spend 15 minutes Googling, and now it just gives me the answer straight away. So yeah, just go and have a play, try and solve some problems. And, if you're the kind of person that likes building things, it will just lead on to the next thing, and then you'll find a way to use it in your day-to-day life.
Absolutely. Thank you, James. And Damon, lucky last.
So look, I'd pick up on a similar theme. I'd say just experiment, don't overthink it, don't overcomplicate it. I think most people will find it's a lot easier to do a lot of things than they expected. I think, people should expect to be underwhelmed on some of its functionality and surprised on the upsides on some of its other functionality. And I think it's just a natural learning journey for each person that they go on. We talked about the fact that I think you just got to remember that these tools are like never in doubt, but often wrong. So just kind of be aware of that in the back of your mind. And I think, look, for finance specifically, the way I think about it is, you go back a little while, there was a time when people did spreadsheets as a spread out sheet of physical paper on their desk or whatever it was. And then Excel and Lotus or whatever it was called came along and automated all of that. And it's not like all of a sudden you didn't need to know how to do maths or do formulas or think through logic or set out the formulas. It just made everyone a lot more efficient and effective in what they were doing. And I think we'll see a similar step change with the generative AI tools. You still need to know the basics. You still need to know what you're doing. You still need to know what good looks like and what the end product looks like. But I think all of us will end up being more productive in our day-to-day role and be able to give more complex, sophisticated advice to our customers or stakeholders, because the tools available to us are just so much more powerful than they were one generation ago. So that's kind of the journey I see us on in the finance function. I think it's pretty exciting, to be honest.
And Damon, how can people get in contact with you?
LinkedIn, I guess, is
LinkedIn.
probably
Sensational. Thank you so much to all of our guest experts here for their contribution to today's session. The chat area has gone off, had so many big questions come through, so hopefully we've addressed them all, but we'll keep a copy of that, and if anything hasn't been addressed, we'll come back and we'll put some I'm sure we'll put some content out there to address any questions that you did have. Again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, including Wheel, Fathom, Huddled, CFO Magazine, and many others, and everyone who assisted in the development and production of this session. I encourage you to connect with everyone here on LinkedIn. They are sharing lots of great content on this particular topic. The next scheduled events in the Australian CFO Summit start at 11 a.m. today, so you've got about 13 minutes, and that is how large data breaches land at finance's door, and how to use people data to drive business decisions. So you've got a few minutes to grab a cup of tea, jump into the session that's of interest to you. Thank you again for attending today's panel discussion on the topic AI in finance operations, myth or reality. I'm Heather Smith, and from my colleagues on this panel, thank you for joining us today.